Good evening. Public health officials in Bath have warned that the city is on the verge of moving up into Tier 2, which would mean greater restrictions on businesses and social mixing. It comes as COVID infection rates continue to rise across the West. In Bristol, there's been a mixed response to the Mayor's declaration that the city is now in Tier 1 plus status, with some people saying it's confusing and unhelpful. Well, with more on today's developments, we join Andrew Plant. Hi, Andrew.
Hi Alex, Bristol's new Tier 1 plus system can be seen as a two-pronged attack on the virus really. Number one, it gives health officials more tools, if you like, to try to tackle outbreaks within the city. But number two, it's really just a reminder to everybody that lives in Bristol just to follow those basic rules of hand washing, face covering and most of all social distancing. And it has to be said, it isn't just Bristol. Some of our other councils here in the West Country are not that far behind, and they will be watching very closely to see whether these tweaks to the Tier 1 system make any difference.
Across the West Country, everywhere is still subject to Tier 1 restrictions, and for Bristol those rules haven't changed. But the city's new Tier 1 plus system means extra measures, COVID marshals, extra control over test and trace, and targeted action, particularly, we're told, at those aged between 30 and 60. But for some it has caused confusion.
No, I don't actually know, except that it's probably just a prelude to going to Tier 2.
We just need to be extra careful when we go out.
I did try and read it up last night. As I understand, it looks much like Tier 1.
We've never heard of this Tier Plus, no. We didn't know what this really is. So they should be honest with us. Is it going to be a Tier 1 or is it a Tier 2? I mean, instead of fussing around saying that which one it is, they should be honest, I reckon.
There are 3 tier levels, medium, high and very high. The government has said it's not planning on introducing a Tier 1 plus category. Bristol's new system accused in some quarters of overcomplication.
I agree with the Mayor that we all need to take every step we can to minimise the risks and minimise the spread, because otherwise Bristol is heading towards Tier 2. But to invent a new category, I think is unnecessary.
Other areas such as Birmingham went into Tier 2 with lower virus rates than Bristol has now. Oxford has done the same today. But much depends on pressure on local health services, and at the moment the South West has some of the lowest hospital admission rates for coronavirus in the country. If Bristol's Tier 1 plus measures don't work, then Tier 2 is the next step. South Gloucestershire and Bath and North East Somerset councils will be watching very closely. Their coronavirus rates both over 200 per 100,000 people, both with new cases almost doubling in the last week alone.
So at least some councils here in the West Country now will be having those conversations about whether Tier 2 is inevitably on the horizon or whether there are other measures they could take within Tier 1, just like Bristol is doing right now, to see whether they can avoid tighter restrictions. Let's take you through just a few of the figures from today then. We'll leave them up on your screen. Hopefully you can spot where you live. But the headlines are Bristol, 379 cases now per 100,000. South Gloucestershire has 232. Bath and North East Somerset 216. North Somerset 145. Swindon 134. Dorset 110. Gloucester and Cotswolds 102 and 100. So 8 of our 17 local authorities now over the 100 mark. They will all be watching what happens in Bristol now. If those measures don't work in Bristol, I think we'll stop talking about Tier 1 plus and start talking about Tier 2 fairly soon.